parents and the guardians who are being tuned in tonight, and congratulations to the class of 2024. We know you guys are so excited about a lot of things, and we're happy that you're still considering us. And for those that have already considered us, thank you so much and welcome aboard Wildcats. My name is Quentin Spruill. I am an Assistant Director of Admission at Northwestern University. I'm also a proud double alum, having earned my bachelor's from the School of Education and Social Policy back in 2009, and my master's from the School of Communication in 2017. I've been a part of our great enrollment team for the better part of a decade, working primarily at first in the area of undergraduate financial aid before helping support our students over on the Cutter campus. We are very, very, very happy this evening to have our wonderful President Morton Schapiro join us this evening. He's been our university president for over a decade and has a deep commitment to all of our students, and is he is also a leading economics scholar as well, who regularly teaches our undergrads. So I'd like to thank you, Morty, for taking your time to congratulate and welcome our incoming class and their families, and to address some thoughtful questions that they've submitted. Morty, would you like to share any initial thoughts before we dive into their questions?
I don't know, Quentin, you were so good, so charismatic and articulate. I kind of feel I might let you down here, but I suppose I should say something. I am the president, as you pointed out. So congratulations. I have 3 children of my own, and when they got into schools, we celebrated. When things didn't go right, we commiserated. So having been on both sides, it's a lot better to be on that winning side. So congratulations about that. But of course, with the coronavirus, I just want to say, I hope you and your families are doing as well as possible, that you have good health, not just physical, but mental as well. And as Quentin pointed out, I'm an economist, and people keep talking about economic recovery, and I write about this. I'm a labor economist. I know a little bit about that subject, but people haven't been talking about the psychological recovery, Quentin. And man, I was president of Williams back in 2001 when 9/11 happened. And I just remember just what it was like, residual impact, not the economic impact and the practical day-to-day, but just the toll it took on all of us psychologically. So I just want to say to everybody who's watching, just take care of yourself, broadly define yourselves and your family. And again, congratulations about the opportunity to join the Northwestern community.
Thank you, Morty. So what you guys should expect today, again, thank you so much for everyone who submitted your questions as we prepare for this Q&A. This should go around 30 to 45 minutes or so. And we'll try to address as much as we can. I want to make sure we note that Morty's wearing a tie. He wanted me to make sure that we recognize the fact that he hasn't put one on in a little bit. So thank you for that.
Thank you for mentioning that, Quentin. It's a purple tie, which I wear. Those of you who don't know me, everything I own is purple. So my ties, my shirts, workout, everything I do, it's all purple, and I've been wearing that proudly for 11 years. My wife just said, Quentin, a couple of minutes ago, you should put on a jacket. And I probably should have. I apologize. I own jackets, but my signature here is this purple tie. I'm proud to be wearing it.
Purple pride is fully on the screen right now, so thank you. Morty, as you know, many of our parents and families have asked about Northwestern's response to COVID-19, to the pandemic. And they're eager, of course, for insights about this fall. And they're also understandably concerned about the safety and preparedness as they send their children off to college. To what extent possible, given the unknowns of a lot, could you share when you hope to decide if campus can reopen in September, and speak to the different scenarios Northwestern may be considering for this coming school year?
Well, Quentin, that is the big question. Northwestern, as you know, is one of the 65 North American members of the AAU, the Association of American Universities, the great research universities in North America. And we had our Zoom meeting on Sunday and again on Monday, and then we had breakout groups, and I was with a couple of my colleagues, the Ivy League presidents, and we're all going around, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the best thing I could say, Quentin, is whatever we do, we're going to do it 5 weeks after everybody else. One of the great advantages of the quarter system is that, you could see what's working elsewhere. I wasn't surprised to hear the announcement this morning or yesterday from Purdue, because Mitch Daniels was one of them. And I heard that, well, they're hoping to bring back students in the dorms in August. I was like, wow, I didn't think anybody was hoping about that. BU, I think, said they're not opening up their January, and their president is AAU as well. He was there. So it was all over the place, but we're going to see what everybody else is going to do. And as you said, Quentin, safety is obviously job one here. And, we learned a lot from, right now we're doing Zoom classes for the spring quarter. And the decision we made quite a while ago was to add an extra week to spring break so that we would really get these courses up in as meaningful a fashion as possible. And that was because of the nature of the quarter system. So, some people were Zoom classes back when they were Zoom bombing and everything was going wrong. And we're like taking notes about what we could do better. And in some cases, 2 weeks later, we started the quarter. And I think the reason it's gone so smoothly is because we had this luxury of time. And the same thing's going to happen. I mean, we're supposed to move in September 14th, start classes on September 22nd in person. Sure would hope and pray that's the case. If Purdue's really going to get the people 5 weeks ahead, we'll see how that's working out. And, we have the advantage of seeing what everybody else is doing. Nobody starts basically as late as we do. So we have every scenario, from having everybody in there and business as usual, even though it doesn't seem all that likely, who knows, to being remote, to some mixture of the two. One thing I would say, Quentin, is that we had a really good meeting yesterday about how we could do remote classes more effectively than we're doing now. And I think if you talk to our faculty and our students, I think they're pretty happy with the way we're doing it. But I don't teach this. We were just talking before. I don't teach in the spring. I teach an undergraduate course in the winter, but I have Zoomed in as a guest lecturer for a variety of courses the past couple of weeks. And no, they're not the same. They're obviously not the same. You try your best. But if we stay with the Zoom later and say into at least part of the fall, we're gonna do an even better job than we're doing. And the meeting was on how you flip the classroom, right? I mean, if you're gonna do a lecture, the class I just taught with Saul Morrison, 72 people, it's more a discussion, but there's lectures. In retrospect, if we were doing this in the fall, we do it in the winter. So prospectively, we would probably tape the lecture and just Zoom into small groups. And that's the classic flipped classroom. And that's what I think we're going to do. At Northwestern, we already have about 77% of our classes are small seminars. But the big ones could be taught differently than they are right now, Zoom courses in the spring. So our commitment is to provide the best possible educational experience possible. And as good as it is now, if we have to stay remote, it's going to be better, I can promise you, in the fall.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I have to piggyback on that and say, us as a community as a whole, we've done a fantastic job with this transition of moving our what we do best online, and that wasn't, unexpected, but we did so very well. It's unideal, but we're working through it. So thank you, Morty. One submission asked, will Northwestern adjust financial aid for students whose families are impacted by COVID-19? So we saw similar questions. There's a number of them. So could you talk about the university's commitment to financial aid in the wake of this pandemic?
Well, as an economist, I said I'm a labor economist, but I work particularly in the economics of higher education. And so for 30 years of books and articles, I've been writing about need-based aid. How do you do it and why you should morally do it? When I first started working, Quentin, in this area, there'd probably be 40 schools that were need blind for domestic students and meet full need. And for a large part of that, that's without any loans as the self-help part of the financial aid offerings. And now the latest count, there's only 19 of us left. So Northwestern's proudly one of them. Only 19 schools that make the distinction between ability to pay and whether you're brilliant enough to get in. and then meet full need without any loans. 19 of us. So it's a little scary at 4,300 colleges and universities in this country, but they're not blessed with our endowment and not blessed with the philanthropy we get. So we're committed to do that. Certainly while I'm president, we're very much committed to doing that without loans and have very, very generous financial aid packages. And we saw in 08, 09 that the neediness went up. Some people who weren't eligible for need-based aid became eligible. This isn't a merit aid, school like many of them, including a number of our peers. We do need-based, but we do very generous need-based packages. We meet full need and we don't believe in loans. So we're going to continue that.
I've seen that commitment through and through over your tenure, and current students thank you, prospective students thank the entire university in that regard. It's particularly in events like this, which are obviously unplanned, but we do the best we can with the resources we have. So thank you again. As university president, Morty, what is your ultimate goal for students, and what advice do you have for parents who are preparing to see their first child leave for college?
Yeah, first child's pretty traumatic, empty nested, pretty traumatic. The whole thing is frankly very traumatic. And, when I welcome parents and other loved ones I'd move in, and I give a little different talk than I think, and maybe some people who are watching this have other kids who are at Northwestern, have gone through Northwestern. And I say that it's a partnership. I don't believe, this helicopter parent, this idea that, you raise your kid, these brilliant kids, go away, we'll see you in 4 years, and don't forget to support the parents fund. I hate that. I hated that, hearing that as a parent, and I would never say that as a president. I think that it's a partnership, and it's really important for the parents to play a positive role. This isn't the kind of place where you need to hound them, or you getting up and going to classes and, what's your GPA? It's more sort of, are you taking care of yourself physically and mentally? Are you making friends? Are you getting out of your comfort zone? Are you going when we have these luminaries as lectures? Are you attending? Are you going to, wear your purple and cheer on the Wildcats? Are you going to the concerts, the classical music and jazz concerts? Are you going to the plays? Are you taking advantage of our proximity, just short distance away from one of the great cities in the world, Chicago? And I mean, that's the kind of partnership that works very well, I think, at Northwestern. As for what I hope the qualities that our graduates have when they, leave this campus, I have some ideas as a parent. I want them to be nice kids. I want them to be sensitive kids. But I want them to be happy kids. This is an era, I've been teaching long enough. I started on the faculty and back in 1979. I've been teaching undergrads 41 years straight, actually, without a sabbatical. I've seen the different generations. I love this generation. They work so hard and they care about the world, and they understand diversity, and they believe in inclusion, and a number of the kind of prejudices people grew up with. They just don't understand, how we could have thought those ways. On the other hand, this isn't the most resilient generation I've ever seen. The generation eats themselves up all the time. It's a generation that is so used to success. When you knock them down, they're not so sure how to get up. So, I want kids to get confidence and become more resilient. But also, as a labor economist, who's worked on this and published studies, I can tell you, I know the sort of skills that pay off in the job market. There's skills like broad, flexible education, being an entrepreneur, being a nimble thinker. I mean, sure, you want our students to graduate with some enhanced aesthetic, appreciation. You want them to be quantitatively adept. I'm applied econometrician, so I don't have to convince people that statistics and math, econ's really important. That's what I do, right? So that's really important as well. But, as a labor economist, I'll tell you, my generation, people would pick an occupation and they'd have 3 or 4 employers over the course of a 40-year career. My students now, they try teaching, maybe TFA, Teach for America, for a while. And then they go to, I teach econ math kind of stuff. So they go to Goldman, or they go to McKinsey, or maybe some non-for-profit. They do that for a while. And then all of a sudden they say, write me a letter for law school. So law school, you're making, yeah, law school. I'm going to do law school. You want to practice? God forbid. I don't want to be a litigator. No, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So, they're teaching, they're in business and consulting or not-for-profit. They're back in the legal profession. And then they're, entrepreneurs. So, how do you educate women for people who are going to be changing, not, employers, but careers multiple times? And I think the answer is really pretty clear. It's a broad kind of education. You have to ask the question, as I write about this, is what's the best insurance? What kind of education minimizes the chances you're going to be outsourced to some country where somebody's going to do what you do for a third the price, a third the cost? What's the best insurance you have against AI removing, artificial intelligence removing your job, or automation and robotics? Well, it's clear. It's a broad, technical, but also aesthetic, creative, nimble education. And I think that's what we do at Northwestern. Even, I shouldn't say even, we have almost a quarter of our undergrads are in McCormick in engineering, but we do design engineering, right? We don't just do the technical kind of narrow engineering. Some other places do. And I don't think that education is really going to serve our students well. It might start them off making a lot of money for a couple of years, but my question is not what they're doing when they're 25. What are they doing when they're 35? What are they doing when they're 40 and 45? And I think the kind of broad education we provide helps them. And the final thing I'd say, the two most important things when people ask me about educational outcomes for our undergrads, one is that they're equipped with the tools to educate themselves for a lifetime. Because I don't know about you, Quentin, when you graduated in 09 and when I graduated back in 75, undergrad, I might have thought I knew it all, but I quickly learned I didn't know very much. And over a course of a life, you educate yourself. So you need the tools to educate yourself. But I think, any of our great publics or privates, they teach you how to educate yourself. What I love about Northwestern, the Midwest, is we also have the humility to remind people that they're not fully educated and they need to educate themselves. So, having the tools to educate yourself for a lifetime, Quentin, that's a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. You need humility as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It reminds me of definitely over 10 years ago, probably sophomore year in the School of Education and Social Policy, when a professor of mine told us all, the careers that we're going to have 10, 15 years from now, or even 2 years from then, weren't even there yet. They weren't even created. And that's still the case. And I think for sure, Northwestern does a great job at preparing us to adapt to an adapting world, regardless of whatever that discipline or, that pathway will shape up to look like. So, well said. So can you speak a little bit more in terms of research? So a question we had is what makes Northwestern education stand apart from other great research schools? Or as one parent put it more exactly, where do you see Northwestern excelling and creating real long-lasting value for students?
Well, I alluded to the AAU, the Association of American Universities. There are 1,000 schools out there that call themselves universities, but there's only 65 in all of North America who are actually validated as such. I happen to be on the membership committee, so I know how difficult it is to get in and to stay in. Depends on sponsored research and on citations and publications and National Academy memberships. We have this algorithm that ranks all the schools, both in the AAU and the ones who want to be in the AAU. So only 27 of them are privates. So, if you step back, I think I mentioned, Quentin, that there are 4,300 colleges and universities in this country, for-profit, not-for-profit, 2-year, 4-year, public and private. 27 of them are members, private universities, good enough to have a research output to be AAU. And we're one of those 27. So, when you think about what distinguishes Northwestern from this enormous group of 4,300 colleges and universities, is we're a private research university of the highest caliber. We have $800 million in sponsored research. The lion's share comes from the National Institutes of Health, but we also get it from the National Science Foundation and the like. that 800 million dwarfs all the net tuition revenue we get from our lovely 8,000 undergrads, which is only $222 million. So it's fourfold. I mean, that's how large we are as a research university. And we're changing the world. And that's wonderful. You see it with COVID-19, but you see it with everything. And it's not just STEM, so much focus on STEM. You think about musical compositions and the plays and the acting and just all the things that we contribute to the humanistic social sciences, CESP, where I am a faculty member, where you graduated from, Quentin. We're just the policy research. I mean, all realms of knowledge are enhanced by faculty at Northwestern University. But I think what the parents might be more interested than that is to say, how does that affect the undergraduate education? Because frankly, the reputation at a lot of big research universities is, high-powered research, which is done disproportionately by that research faculty, National Academy members, and the like, and postdocs. We have 1,000 postdocs. We have 3,000 PhD students. They're the ones in the labs. They're the ones co-authoring. What about the 8,000 undergrads? And one thing that I'm really happy to talk about, and this has been probably my greatest focus, I have to say, in my 11 years as 16th president there, is to make sure that it's complementary to the undergraduate experience, not a substitute. And we know at some places, unfortunately, it's more the substitute than the complement. So we have thousands of our undergrads are now working in the labs. If the grant doesn't cover it, we cover it. And not just in the labs, I've co-authored articles, all my friends, we've all co-authored articles with undergrads. And, the university supports that. And it's great for these students because when they do apply to medical school, law school, MBA, PhD, masters, and, you get about 2/3 of our students like you Quentin, get another degree after their undergraduate degree, it gives them a leg up because they have articles published with our very, very famous faculty. And I think that is really important to make sure. And I mentioned I was at Williams College, preeminent liberal arts college, along with the Bowdens and the Middleburys and the Amherst and Swarthmores. And I spent 20 years teaching there. 9 years of that I was president. And, there was no question about the focus on undergrads because we didn't have grad students. We didn't have postdocs. We didn't have, millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in NIH money. We did undergrads, and we did a great job. And the challenge at a big research university, like one of the 27 of us privates, AAUs, is to make sure that the undergrads are helped by our research profile and not lessened by it. And I've worked really hard on that too. I think some pretty good impact. I never say that, it's exactly the same education you'd get at an Amherst or a Pomona. But on the other hand, they don't have engineering. They don't have journalism. They don't have a lot of things that we do have. But I think that undergrads should not pay the price for research prominence. They should reap the benefits. And I have worked hard with a lot of good people to make that a reality here over the past 11 years.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we all agree with that. To that end, speaking of distinctiveness, like in you, distinctive characteristics, one of those things is, of course, is that the fact that we're in a quarter system. So we had a great question about academic flexibility and the students' ability to change their course of study after enrolling. So can you shed some light and offer your perspective on the quarter system and its virtues, and speak more broadly in terms of Northwestern's distinctive intellectual academic culture?
Well, Quentin, and I had spent my whole career teaching at University of Southern California, briefly University of Pennsylvania, and as I said, 20 years at Williams College, and that was all the semester systems. I came to the quarter and I was like, what is this? I mean, but I'll tell you, as I argued as a labor economist, the data are pretty clear that if you have a broad, flexible education, you do much better in labor force. Well, when you can take, say, 48 courses and not 32, that's an enormous difference when you just think about it. You can take 12 courses a year, not 8. So that allows you to do everything. And, Weinberg's got the rule of 2. Basically everybody has a major and a minor. And if it's a minor or concentration, it tends to be, IMC, integrated marketing communication, which, as you know, is It's actually a Medill, not a Weinberg thing, or through Weinberg, BIP, business institutions. So, a lot of people have a major and they take one of those two, or in some cases, even both. I teach a lot of kids who are econ math doubles, and then they do a third thing as a minor. With the flexibility, nobody has the flexibility of the quarter system. There's just very few of us who still have it. Dartmouth, University of Chicago, Stanford, just a handful. And even during my 11 years, I've seen a whole bunch of institutions move away from it. And there's a downside to the quarter system, to be brutally honest. The idea that you're always in exams, and it is really true. When I taught at the rest of my career, and I would teach an undergraduate class, the first class, I'd make a couple of jokes, try to learn a few names. The second class, we'd be going through the syllabus. The third class, I'd start to, I go class one, you miss those couple of weeks. And most of us were trained on teaching the semester. And to be honest with you, Quentin, if you suspected you're kind of getting semester courses in a quarter, it's because you are. Because, we're used to teaching somewhere else. And basically, we just teach really fast. So this idea that you're always in exams is pretty much true. But on the other hand, if you have a teacher you really like, you take that teacher again. If you have a class that you don't love, at least it's over faster. It's going to the dentist. And no offense to any parents who are dentists, but you get it over with and you feel good about it after, right? So, I've become a big fan of the quarter system. I think especially with changes in the global labor market I alluded to before, it's better now than ever, but you have to make sure that you have other things that try to relax the students, because there's an academic intensity involved in the quarter system that you simply don't see in the semester system.
Unmute myself, there we are. So let's pivot a little bit to tradition. So unfortunately, as we know, COVID-19 has affected a number of traditions that take place over the spring, but of course, NU traditions take place across the academic year and beyond. What are some of your favorite Northwestern traditions, Morty?
Well, I have a number of them. I love staying up and painting the rock. I'm a big fan of Dillo Day. I wander around. I give the opening little talk, and it's just such a wonderful day. It's just great. But my favorite is DM, Dance Marathon. And one of the things, as you know, my wife and I, we host a lot of dinners at the house, thousands of people, literally every academic year over for dinner. And one of the ones that we miss the most is we have the 120-hour folks, the people who have danced 30 hours, 4 years in a row. And there's so many 120s now that you can't even fit them all in the house. The most we could do for a sit-down dinner is 72. It's big, but it's not 120. So this year, we were going to do a different kind of event, like we do for WAMU, and we were going to have the house with eating places everywhere and try to get 120 to 150 people in there. I miss that. And the toughest decision was early in COVID-19 challenges was to cancel, Dance Marathon. People were really mad at me, but it turned out, boy, it would have been a cruise ship there, in that tent. Petri dish, and I'm glad we pulled the plug on it. That was when it was unclear whether you needed to, which is why students were so upset. But I think now in retrospect, they realize that having people stay up for a day and a half in close quarters with everybody sweating, even without COVID-19, it's a factory for flu. This would have potentially been deadly. So I miss that. And then we created some new ones. I came from Williams, which is the land of traditions, a school that goes back to 1793, and there's tradition and tradition and tradition. I was a little taken back when I got here 11 years ago that there weren't more traditions. And we started one very famously, I'm sorry, it was right after you graduated, it was March Through the Arch. We had this arch that dates back to 1993. Not 1793, but 1993, which we renamed Weber Arch. And we march everybody through in a beautiful ceremony. And a couple of years ago, we marched back through the arch, started this thing at Six Flags. We take the whole entering class and we give them this, take them to an amusement park 45 minutes away where it's just them and it's closed except for them. And, we do a lot of things like that. So there were some traditions and now there's some more traditions. And God willing, when we get back to some semblance of normalcy, we'll bring them back.
I have to say, I agree with the March to the Arch. It wasn't a tradition of mine, but it definitely has been something I often cite as a favorite tradition when students ask. And I can say the entire community, not just faculty, but a number of staff across the university. Of course, us at the admissions office as well. We're there at the Arch. We love seeing that sea of purple coming in every year. So there's a lot of great things happening across campus.
If I could say one thing about March to the Arch, I do a lot of judging things in the dorms. I do, firesides all the time and dinners, like once a week, as you probably know. And I did one, actually it was my second year here, my third year. And I was judging, it was Bob McCulloch, and it was, I think it was for homecoming, who was going to represent them in homecoming or whatever it was, or one of these contests, and they did some talent thing. It was really hysterical. I love watching students in their element at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night carry on with their madness, performing and all that stuff. It's really a lot of fun. So I did that, and they did their talent show, and they were all pretty good. Nobody was going to be on Broadway, trust me, but this wasn't folks from the School of Communication. It was more CESP, no offense, and Weinberg and McCormick. So, they weren't all that great aesthetically in that, but so then I decided, I couldn't decide. So I said, I'm going to interview. And I asked the question, what's your most memorable thing? And this one person got up and said, you know what? It was marching through the Arch. To be part of that ancient tradition, was just to walk through that beautiful old arch, reminded me of 1851 and the creation. I'm sitting there. The Arch was built in 1993. I started March in 2009. This was like the second year. I didn't have the heart to say, this isn't like a tradition of 150 years. It's like 2 years old. So I just said, oh, that was very moving. But the nice thing about young people, as opposed to somebody my age, they don't understand tradition. You can start something, and they think it started in the Revolutionary War, which is why when you always know a college town, when you walk around and you see some sushi place, it proudly says in the window, established 2016. And it's like a joke. It's not, 1916 or 1816, it's 2016 because, for the students in 2020, I was in middle school, for them, that's a long time ago. So the good news about academia is you can create these meaningful traditions. And every time you get a new idea, you just do it. And it takes hold very quickly.
Couldn't agree. Can you share any exciting initiatives that might be on the horizon for us at Northwestern?
Well, we're always trying to do something. We're always trying to integrate the classroom experience with life outside the classroom. And that's hard to do. I can tell you as a longtime faculty member, you sort of, what you do in the classroom and, you say, well, people can do things outside, but that's not really my business. Well, it kind of is our business. And you have to remember, Quentin, as you know very well, that we have them in the classes a couple hours a day, and the rest of their education is, peer-to-peer education, and that's really, really important. One of the most shocking things that happened to me 20 years ago when I first became a college president was I would presiding over homecoming reunions, and people would come back for their 10th or their 25th or their 50th, whatever. And I would say, oh, you came back, tell me about your undergraduate experience. And, when I got to Northwestern, they would say, oh, I stayed up all night at the Lake Phil and watched the sunrise, or I did dance marathon, or Dillo Day, or my club softball team won the championship, or I was in a fraternity or sorority, or I did this, I interned in Chicago, on and on and on. And finally I say, did you take a class? I mean, come on, I'm a faculty member. And it's so funny that, and it's a little discouraging. And faculty sometimes are blissfully unaware that when you ask people about the defining moments in their undergraduate experience, if I asked you, I hope you would say a couple of classes, but it's not what immediately comes to mind. It's their friendships. It's when they were knocked down and somebody helped them get back up. It was when they won an award. It was their study abroad or whatever. And that wasn't the classes, God knows, study abroad. It was living in Florence for, a semester or so, it's recognizing that if you could be synergistic between what happens in the classroom and the much broader education that takes place outside, you're doing something very special. And we've done a lot of things, as you know, and we will continue to do things to bridge that gap between the classroom experience and the greater education outside the classroom.
Thank you. Sorry. Let's talk a little bit for a hot second on our Big Ten pedigree. Fun question here. You know, how do you like our chances of winning the Big Ten title this year?
In any sport in particular? Because, you know, we won it in women's basketball.
Let's take our best gamble.
And we were probably going to win it in women's lacrosse as we did last year, although Maryland's pretty formidable, but we beat them for it last year. And I think we were going to win it for softball. We had one of the best teams in the country, but I think you are talking about football, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, well, 2 years ago, I don't know if did you go 2 years ago when we were in Indy and we played the Ohio State in Indianapolis, and we got a donor to give hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we took 60 buses and it became the big story. We took thousands of undergrads for free. And the loading of the buses was just a riot because, you know, we gave them certificates or coupons to get food once they got to Lucas Oil Stadium. We gave them food for the bus going, food for the bus coming back. We loaded the buses at 1. They rolled back in about 3 in the morning. What an experience. You know, when I talk to those people or my successors talk to them at homecoming reunions, you know, they're going to be talking about going to Indy. So, boy, was that fun. Was that fun. And 8.9 million people watched us against Ohio State. And I hope they were watching in that third quarter when we came back, even though ultimately we lost. But, you know, that was really exciting. And, you know, I'm hoping for that again. You know, I mentioned the 27 private AAUs. You know how many of them play sports at the highest level? This will shock people. 5. 2 in the Pac-12, which is USC and Stanford. 1 in the SEC, Vandy. 1 in the ACC, Duke, and us in the Big Ten. So of the 27, the other 22 are playing Division III, you know, like many of our great peers, like University of Chicago and Johns Hopkins and Emory and schools like that. Or they're in one of the 8 Ivies, or, you know, they're playing Division I, but they're not part of the Power 5, which is the 65 schools playing athletics at the highest level. So of those 65, 5 of us are these AAU private universities. I'm very proud that Northwestern is one of them. I've always believed, Quentin, that if you're going to do it at the highest level. You know, we don't tell our theater people that they shouldn't become the next Julia Louis-Dreyfus or, you know, Steve Colbert or Seth Meyers or any of our incredible luminaries. We don't tell our musicians that they should be in some community group. You know, we tell them they should go for the New York Philharmonic or the Chicago Symphony, and they do. You know, we don't tell anybody, they're engineers or social science, anybody, they shouldn't go for the highest level. We don't tell our 520 varsity athletes that, you know, this is a nice little thing to do. We don't keep score. We do keep score. We're in the Big Ten, okay? And we compete, and we compete at the highest levels, and we win at the highest levels. And man, does that feel good. And we had so much fun in Indy. And this year with women's basketball, winning the Big Ten for the first time in 30 years. We finished the season ranked 11. We were going to host that first 2 rounds of the dance, and the whole thing was called off, of course. And I just can't wait to get our sports back. 19 varsity sports, every one of them competes at the highest level.
That's amazing. To that end of, you know, a very competitive environment, or at least mindset, there's a level of humility to us as well. And you've touched on, you know, your history thus far and where you've been. And so you're originally from the East Coast, but you spent a number of years living out in California. I'm from Chicago, so I'm a little biased. How do your experiences in the Midwest compare, and why choose Evanston, Chicago, and Lake Michigan?
Well, frankly, going back more than 11 years ago, was my wife's idea. You know, she's from LA, Valley girl from LA. I'm from the New York area, which my kids remind me means New Jersey. But anyway, New York area. I could see Manhattan, even though we were afraid to go through the tunnel or the bridge to go there when I was growing up. But anyway, so my life has basically been on the coast. And when it came time to leave Williams, my wife said, let's try the Midwest. People are supposed to be really friendly there. And, you know, I don't know much about it. I'd only been to Northwestern campus. I'd given a talk here once, I think. So I had a couple of friends in the faculty because we all know each other, you know, especially in my department, economics, and a former student who's tenured here. You know, it was sort of taking a flyer for me. But we love the Midwest. You know, I mean, I tell you, living on Long Island, in New Jersey, in DC, you know, in Williamstown, in LA, and a couple of other places here and there, West Philly, and then Center City when I was on the faculty at Penn. You know, I really like the Midwest. There's a civility here, and there's a humility that is really nice. And, you know, that's one thing. I mean, I talked about the competitiveness of the quarter system, but it's not a competitiveness of like, what were your ACTs and SATs? What's your GPA? And I'll tell you mine. It's not the kind of place where you worry that you put a book on reserve and people tear out the pages, like some places notoriously worry about that because it's true. You know, it's just, you know, we get about, you know, about half of our incoming undergrads come from either the East or West Coast of the US or global, outside the US, as you know, Quentin. And, you know, a lot of them come here and with very different behavioral norms. And they quickly figure out that what might work on the coast or outside this country maybe they don't work here. You know, this is not the place where you brag. It's not a place where, you know, you flaunt, you know, your scores and I mean, it's not. It's a place where you really help people. I once had a commencement speaker when I was president of Williams, who had a line I never forgot. He said, the only time it's acceptable to look down on someone is when you reach out your hands and lift that person up. That's the Midwest. That's the culture of the Midwest. And that's one reason why my family has been so happy to be here for the past more than a decade.
So we're going to wrap up pretty shortly, Morty. So one of the final questions we have for you is, what do you love most about teaching here at Northwestern? You're among a list of favorite professors by our undergrad. So what do you love most about teaching Northwestern students?
Well, you know, teaching is really, it's really just an honor. You know, again, I've been doing it for 41 years. I wouldn't still be doing it if I didn't love it. You know, I don't know how many presidents actually teach courses and might show up or something, but I don't know. But I do, because I love it. I mean, I was trained as a teacher and as a researcher, and I'm proud to do both. I love teaching at Northwestern. The students are fantastic. The grad students I work with, you know, who help TA are brilliant. They're co-teachers. It's not like when I was a grad student or other places where, you know, you have a grad student, you never see them, and they just do the grading or whatever. I mean, you know, they're really co-teachers in a remarkable way. And the students are just great. You know, they're so, I don't know if the word is adorable, but for me, they're adorable. You know, they care so much, and they care about each other. And, you know, it's not a kind of grade grubbing thing. Why did I get an A- and an A, not an A or B? I mean, I hear almost none of that. It's more sort of, there's a genuine interest in learning. And when you get a chance to be in a classroom, and boy, do I learn. You know, the course I just finished teaching in the winter quarter with Gary Saul Morrison, our best teacher here. He's arguably the world's expert on Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and he teaches these very large classes in Russian literature. And he and I are best friends and co-authors. We wrote a book, Sense and Sensibility, that came out a couple of years ago. And that was the class notes from this course. So, you know, what did the students learn from me and from Saul? Something. But we got a book that got really good reviews in the Wall Street Journal and the New Yorker, et cetera. And we actually have a new book that is coming out, hopefully going to be coming out shortly, called Dangerous Minds, The Rise of Fundamentalism. That came from this course too. So, you know, we changed, you know, this idea that somehow we have these yellow notes, right, that we did when we were grad students and teaching our own sections or TAing for professors, and we don't change them. That's just not the reality. Maybe there's some people, some parents who are on the faculty, you know, we got to keep up. We go crazy teaching the same course every year. So we change them. Saul and I, we have basically nothing, even though this course we've taught 10 years in a row, the only thing in common is the course number. Humanities 260. It's a whole different course. There's basically nothing that's still in there. And now with the new book, we're going to blow it up and change it all again. And so you learn when you teach. You get inspired. And, I said before that having the tools to educate yourself for a lifetime and the humility to know that you're far from properly educated, that's true for faculty as well as students.
Well said. Thank you, Morty. I think you've made us feel a little bit better about why some of our students are considering us. And we thank you for your time on behalf of the Office of Admission, on behalf of all of our parents and families watching out there. Thank you, President Schapiro, for joining us. Parents, thank you again for watching. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out, we're here for you. There's tons of information on the current situation available on our website, so be sure to check that out. There is also a number of opportunities to continue to learn about us, particularly here at the Northwestern Admissions YouTube channel. Tons of content available for you. We're still finding great ways, innovative ways to connect with prospective students and you guys, the class of 2024, newly admitted students. So again, thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions, let us know. We hope this has been very informative for you. Again, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And thank you again, President Schapiro.
Thank you, Quinn.